going to share with you the Office Lens app for phones. Now, this is a free app from Microsoft available for all devices, whether you're Android or Apple, it doesn't matter. This is a kind of a PDF scanner, and it is more than any other scanner app for the phone. And I'm going to demonstrate to you some of those features that make Office Lens incredibly unique. So here you can see it on my phone screen. That's what the icon looks like. I'm going to click it and it's going to open. Now, the first thing that I want you to notice, there are a number of things that you can capture in Lens. You can scan a whiteboard, a document, a business card. Of course, it can also just simply take a photo. So this could be your camera app as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open a book that I have here. So this is just a page that I'm taking a picture of using the Office Lens app. I'm just going to snap a photo of it. And so now you can see what I've done. And I'm just going to leave it like that. I do not need to do anything fancy. I'm going to confirm. Now I'm done. Now I can crop this. I can add additional features, but really all I want to do is click the orange button. So orange is the Office Lens color. Now, before I started, when I first got this app, I logged in using my business account, my school account, as it were. So here it's showing me which account I'm in. And then I can change the title. So in this case, this was a Magnus Chase book. If you've never read any of the Rick Riordan books, hilariously funny. So this is a Magnus Chase excerpt. And here it's asking me where I want to save this excerpt. So of course I can save it to my photo gallery. I can save it as a PDF. I can send it to OneNote, OneDrive, Word, or PowerPoint. I can also send it to Outlook, or in this case, my Gmail. But look here at the bottom, Immersive Reader. This is important. We talk about this. I'm going to share it with you next in this video. But know that you can send any text into Immersive Reader without having to leave the Office Lens app. That alone is what sets this app apart from other document scanner apps. Okay, so what do I want to do? Now I'm just going to decide. I think I want to send this to OneNote. I'm going to actually send it to the same OneNote that I'm going to use for this video. So here it's keeping my title the same, and I can choose the location where I want this file to be sent. So these are all the different OneNotes that I have. And I'm going to send it to the one that I am using for this video. And I'm going to put it in the readings section of the book. And then I click save. And it's going to take a few minutes, but it's going to transfer this picture directly over into my OneNote. So let's head over to the OneNote and take a look at it. All right, so I've come over, I've opened the OneNote into which I sent my Magnus Chase excerpt, and here it is. It'll just take a little while for it to actually make the switch over, but it will. Here is another sample from the same book, just a different page. So incredibly simple, incredibly versatile, and I think it's kind of a must-have for every teacher. All right, so let's talk about Immersive Reader. So here's a sample from a book, just copied a page using Office Lens, which we discussed previously. So this is just the actual picture. I did absolutely nothing to it except send it over here to OneNote. So how do we access Immersive Reader and what can it do? What I want to do here, and again, I'm in my OneNote, I'm going to click on View, And notice, and I'm in the online version of OneNote. It doesn't have to be the desktop version. And once I click View, I have the button that says Immersive Reader. So I'm going to go ahead and click on it. Now, this is absolutely astounding. Look at what it did. So now, one of the big things about the inclusive education tools, this is so important. This is non-stigmatizing. Nobody else needs to know that your students are doing this. So, and I'll prove it to you. I'm just going to hit the back arrow, and you can still see exactly what the other students are looking at. So it doesn't change anything except for the person who's using Immersive Reader. I'm going to go ahead and open it back up. And one of the cool things is that it actually saves the settings that were previously used. So a student doesn't have to set this up over and over again every time he or she wishes to use the reader. So what can we do here? Well, first you'll notice the color has changed. It's a lot bigger. So there's a few things that the student has access to. So first at the bottom, there are some voice settings. So the student can have this read out loud at speed, a little faster or a little slower, depending on the needs of the student. And the student can choose a male or a female voice, depending on preference. Up in the upper right corner is where the magic really happens. So first, let's talk about the text preferences. The student is able to increase or decrease the size of the text. So students with visual impairment can bring up the font to be a size that he or she can see it more easily. I'm going to bring this back down just a little bit. You can also have the student increase the spacing between the letters and the words. And they have a choice of 3 different fonts. So Calibri and Sitka were both chosen because they are really helpful for people with dyslexia. Comic Sans was chosen because that's the way that we tend to teach our children, our young children, how to write when they're printing. So this most closely equates to the standard writing that young people are used to seeing. You can also change the color scheme depending on the needs of the individual. So again, the black and the white screen with black writing can often be really hard on the eyes. It's very stark. And so students are able to make changes based on what the needs of the individual are. And again, nobody needs to know that the student is doing this, completely non-stigmatizing. All right, so I'm going to put it to that green. I think that's a nice shade. And we're going to come up here to the grammar options. So this is pretty cool here. So think about your students who are still learning the English language. Hint, that's every one of us. None of us has a complete mastery of the English language, being so difficult, right? So, but especially students who are young, who are here from another country where English isn't their first language. Students can turn syllabication on and off, again, helping with pronunciation. I'm going to turn it back off for just a minute. And also, the student can highlight the different parts of speech. So this is critical, especially for language learners, because they need to see how the words work together. Can show the labels so that they can learn the order, because they're different depending on the language. In different languages, verbs and nouns are often in different orders in their sentences. So learning the language is helpful if they can see how the words work together. I also think about kindergarten students, first graders who are just learning the parts of speech, being able to take a look in Immersive Reader and make lists, write down the different words as a potential activity while reading, just something to keep the students engaged in what they are hearing and seeing on the screen. All right, I'm going to go ahead and shut those off because we're going to do our reading preferences next. Now, I had a son who had, in 3rd grade, was diagnosed with a, specific learning disability. We don't know what that means, but he had trouble when he was reading. He often wouldn't remember what he had just read simply because he was so concerned about the number of words he still had to go before he finished the page. So everything literally in one ear, out the other, and he couldn't remember. So the solution was quite simple. Take 2 gigantic pieces of colored paper and cover all the lines on the text except for the one that was being read. Now think about that. Do you think any kid wants to do that in front of his or her peers? Absolutely not. And my son was one of them. He never did it. So he struggled instead. But imagine if he could have done this instead. So now, again, non-stigmatizing, no one needs to know that the student is using this tool to help him or her read. And maybe 1 line is, maybe 3 lines is okay. And depending on how large the text is on the screen, 5 lines could even be revealed. So awesome, awesome for students who don't want others to know that they are struggling in some way. You can also activate, and again, this is all up to the student's control. They can activate the picture dictionary. So by clicking on any of the words, and not all of the words will have a picture, but they will have pronunciation. So if they're learning the language, they can hear the word being spelled out to them. I'm going to see if we can hear this.
Shoes.
And so they can hear the word being said in English, but that's not even the best part of it. So we can have this translated to one of over 60 languages. So the student, imagine a couple of different students in your class. One of them has been here for a while, has some English, but still struggles periodically. In California, we have a large Spanish population from Mexico. So I'm going to click Mexico for Spanish, and the student can have the word translated, just the words he or she needs. So now when I click on shoes, I see the English and hear the English, but I also see it in Spanish now, and I can hear it pronounced in my native language.
Zapatos.
Pretty cool. But what if you have a student who has no English, just here from another country and doesn't speak a lick of English? There you go. You can have the entire document translated into their language. Something to keep in mind, this is a non-contextual translation. This is a word-by-word translation from exactly what is typed or printed in the book directly word for word into Spanish. So there's some contextual discrepancies, but as we are learning more and programming more into the immersive reader, perhaps that will end up changing. So now the student can see the words in his or her native language and can hear it read out loud in a non-robotic voice.
El barco de los muertos adivinó. El piso estaba alfombrado en algas squishy que me hizo feliz de tener zapatos.
So, students are able to make these decisions and choices for themselves so that they can be reading the exact same text that everyone else in the class is reading. So they don't have to have a text that is beneath their understanding simply because of language. So huge tool that we want our students to know about. And it's not just for students. You can train parents to be able to use this immersive reader. It is free. It exists all across Microsoft 365. It's in Word. It's in Minecraft. It's in Outlook. It is everywhere. And so if an email is sent home with an attachment, you can have the parent, they can learn how to open the attachment, put it in immersive reader, and have it read to them or have it translated into the language that they speak at home. So how empowering is that? Okay, let's talk about the math tools available in OneNote. We will do the phone app as well, but we're going to start here in OneNote. So in this case, I've gone ahead and I have written on the screen, I've written out an equation. And let's just say that I have no idea how to solve this equation, which I don't. So I need some assistance. So how do I do that? The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select by clicking and dragging a box around my equation that I'm stuck on. Then I'm going to click on the Draw tab in my OneNote. And I notice when I hit Draw, there's a Math button. So I'm going to click on Math, and my window on the side is going to open. A couple of things I can do. I can ink to Math, so it will actually convert it into an actual typewritten equation. And then I'm going to select an action. I need to decide what I'm solving for. Let's solve for R. And it's going to give me a quick run through. Well, that's probably not helpful, especially for me. I always told my students there's a reason why I teach English and history. I want to see the steps. So I'm going to click Show Steps. And I can do this either by finding the square root or using the quadratic formula. So I'm going to use the quadratic formula, and it's going to give me the steps in writing, but also show me what it looks like in the equation so that I can go through each of the steps. Now, did you happen to notice the little icon here? This is the Immersive Reader icon. So I can even bring up the solutions into Immersive Reader, and notice they've kept my settings from when we demoed Immersive Reader. So I can still access the how-to. I can have it read to me. I can have it translated full Immersive Reader when I'm doing my math homework. Now, okay, as teachers, I know what you're thinking. I know you're thinking, well, isn't this cheating? All they have to do is copy it down. So here's my question. If you as an adult don't know the answer to a question, what do? Right. You probably go to Google. You Google it. Or in this case, because we're Microsoft, we Bing it. So we find the answer. And that's really what this is it's providing a way for students to solve the problem. If they don't know what to do, we're giving them the assistance. Because I remember teaching, it hasn't been that long since I've been out of the classroom, but when kids don't know something, they would just throw up their hands and say, I give up, and they'd go on to something else, and they wouldn't even try. So they didn't have that resiliency. This gives them a way to get help. And when they're finished recording this information on their paper, they have to write it down, of course, or at least type it back out, something. You can have them generate a practice quiz, and they will continue practicing. Now, this can be turned off when it's a testing moment in class. So teachers, you can shut off this ability, just check with your admin, and you can have this help shut down during testing. So it's all fine and good to seek assistance when they're practicing, but when it becomes time for a test, they don't need that assistance. You obviously want them to do the work themselves. So next, we're going to take a look at the phone app and how it is really it's the same, but it's different. All right, so let's take a look at the Math app for mobile devices. This is for all devices, whether you are Apple or Android, all of them free, fantastic, great for students to have when they're stuck on a homework problem. So you can see that it's here in the upper left corner. It's called Math. That's what the icon looks like. So let's open it and see what we can do. Okay, so when it opens, it defaults to the drawing screen. So you definitely don't need to have a stylus or to draw the problem. You can scan. You can basically take a scan of a homework problem from a textbook or on paper, or you can type the problem in. It's a real actual calculator. So if I'm going to draw, let's just use the same one that we were using in the OneNote, just to make it easy. And see, even my writing, it didn't come out well. So I'm just going to take and erase this, and we will try this again. A equals pi r squared. Let's see if it catches that. There we go. So now I've drawn my problem in and I need to know how to solve it. So all I need to do is click the little teal circle arrow. And if you've noticed, Microsoft color codes everything. So for math, teal is the color. In Teams, purple is the color. So you can always find your way around. Well, you can kind of find your way around just by looking for colors if you know what colors to look for. So I'm going to click the arrow and a menu of options appears. So first, if I'm going to solve for r, it gives me the two ways that can be done, finding the square root or the quadratic formula. And then there's a get the step-by-step solution. I just clicked on it, and it's going to show basically everything that was shown in the OneNote. So it's giving the written explanation as well as a reading explanation so they can see it and they can understand it. I can also switch to the other type of solution simply by clicking in the menu, and then it switches to, in this case, using the quadratic formula. And again, it gives me written directions with the equations written out. So great way to gain help. And again, we know that our students sometimes struggle with math, with their language. They struggle in many different ways, and we're just trying to give them tools that they can use to solve the problems versus just saying, I don't get it, and walking away from it, because we know that that's not what we want. That's not what's best for kids. So if I continue scrolling down, there are some other options for this type of problem. There's the complex solution. You could look for solutions solving for A or assigning A. They can generate a quiz. There's even videos for the student. So we know too that many times students need to see things and hear things, explanations from different people in different ways in order to solidify that understanding. And so if I click more videos, there's also some YouTube videos here with Khan Academy that they can go to for additional explanations. If I continue scrolling, and again, I'm still on that same problem, there are related concepts to help the student. There are worksheets from around the web that have been pulled in based on this type of equation. It's even pulled out some similar problems from a web search that it did. And you can even get the desktop version of the app for your laptop or your desktop. So there's quite a lot when a student adds an equation and uses this app. Let's go back really quickly. So again, the student can scan a picture, the student can draw, or the student can type in the equation with which they are struggling. Now, notice in the upper left corner here, this paper and pencil. Let's click on it. And this is kind of the notes page. So here are some pictures. These are scans from other people who have uploaded their scans into Microsoft. There are additional problems, not all of them related to the problem that they were working on in the other screen, but they can look at different types of problems, including word problems. So there's quite a bit here. These are in the examples under the bottom here. You'll notice there are examples. They can also take quizzes on different types of math problems. They get a daily quiz generated for them, so they can practice and watch their scores increase. History saves everything so that anything that they have been working on in the past, they are able to get to it very quickly. They can even bookmark solutions that are important for them. So problems and solutions that they know that they might need later on, they can bookmark to get back to them quickly. So the math app, again, free, easy to use, great for students, gives them one other resource in order to solve potentially difficult problems. Okay, here's another one of my favorites. This one is just a lot of fun. It's really simple to use, and it is the Translator app. Again, from Microsoft, here's the icon. You can download it for any device, and it's super easy to use. So I've downloaded it. I'm just going to open the app. And it seems pretty simple. So I've got some different ways that I can get my language into the phone for translation. So first, obviously, I can touch the microphone, speak into the phone, and it will translate into one of 60 languages. I can also, using the camera icon, I could take a picture of a text in a foreign language and have it translated on my phone into my language. So perfect if I'm traveling. For example, I'm at a restaurant and I don't know how to read the menu. Take a photograph of it and it will make the translation for me so that I can make sure I'm ordering something that I will actually be able to enjoy. Alternatively, you can also type your message if you're unable to talk for some reason. Perhaps you're in a situation where you need to be quiet, but you want to hear a translation, something someone is speaking about. Okay, so the most obvious way to use this is to click on the microphone. And once I do that, then I can choose my language that I wish to have my speech translated into. And yes, you can do Klingon. Now, most of the languages will be typed, the translation will be typed and spoken out loud, but there are some languages which are not actually read out loud. The translation is printed on the phone screen, but not read out loud. Klingon is one of them. So I'm going to keep it set for Spanish because in California, where I'm at, it tends to be the most frequently used language. So now it's very simple. All I need to do is touch the microphone and speak, and it will translate it on my screen and read it out loud. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Hello, welcome.
Hola, bienvenidos.
Pretty simple, pretty easy. Okay, so that's the simple way. Now, I know as a teacher that you have students who don't have English or English is not their first language. And perhaps maybe the student can speak 2 languages or more, but perhaps the parents only speak their native language and English is a struggle. And we know that you have parent-teacher conferences with these families, and often we have to wait for a language interpreter or translator to come to those meetings. And in this time of budget cuts, we know that those staff personnel who are so crucial aren't always available when the parent is available. And that makes it hard. It just makes it challenging for all of the parties involved. Now imagine with this app, you don't have to worry about whether or not a translator will be available for your meeting. Here's what it does. I'm going to touch this little split screen microphone here, and it's going to divide my camera, my phone, into 2 sections. Now, again, I had chosen, I'm going to close this back out. I had chosen Spanish. It is still in Spanish, but I could choose a different language if I wanted to. Let's do Chinese Simplified, for example. Okay, so there we go. Now, currently, I have both facing me so that I could, if I read Simplified Chinese, I could read it holding my phone in the same direction. But imagine that the person with whom you need to speak and have dialogue with is across the table. You can actually split it so that you can be sitting across the table. And all you have to do is show the person how to use the app. So again, I'm going to tap the mic and say my message. Welcome. Thank you for coming to the Parent-Teacher Conference.
欢迎，感谢您来参加家长教师会议。
Perfect. So now, instead of having to rely on a student who may or may not have the contextual knowledge for these kind of upper level conversations, you don't have to rely on that person. We have an app for that. So again, all I have to do this would be a great setup if we were sitting across the table from one another. I could simply touch the curved arrow and we could both be sitting on the same side of the table and still sharing my phone, able to use the translator app. last thing that I'm going to share with you in our inclusive education learning tools is the accessibility checker, which is available across all of Microsoft's products as well. So this is a tool that we should be using whenever we are going to put something out for others to see, whether it's in print, on an email, or if it's posted on the internet. And so accessibility checker. So I'm going to show you where to find that. I'm going to click on view. And again, this is in my OneNote. So I'm going to click on view. And if I head over to the right-hand side, I will see check accessibility. And what it's going to do is find a list of things that I need to fix so that people who have vision issues or hearing issues are able to understand what's on the screen, even if they're having difficulty seeing it. So in this case, it's saying that I have this I have this very long hyperlink here, and it's not really friendly hyperlink text. So what I would need to do is fix that. And it gives me information about how I can go about it. Other things that I can do, really important one, Outlook on the web. You can, anytime you have an email that you're sending out to parents, I think it should become good practice that you do an accessibility check. And the way that you do that in Outlook on the web, it's on the web. So here I'm in my Outlook account, and here's an example email. And I've already started composing the email. So you won't see this until you start composing. But recall that with Microsoft, the ellipses means there's more here. So when you click on the ellipses, then you can check for accessibility issues. And all you have to do is go through and you can find and correct issues with accessibility. So let's take a look at some examples of what that might look like. Okay, so I've gone ahead and opened up this PowerPoint that I'm going to be presenting, but I'm also going to be uploading it for participants to see after the fact. So I want to make sure that any accessibility issues are handled prior to. So this is available in both the web version as well as the desktop version of the apps of all of M365. So in order to get to my accessibility checker, I'm going to come to the Review tab. And check accessibility will be on the left-hand side. And when I click it, it's going to give me a list of things that I need to fix. That way, anybody who is viewing this presentation afterward is able to get the most out of it. So alternative text, this one is big because people with vision issues may not be able to see what's on the screen. And so one of the services that Microsoft provides is that it will give an audio description of the picture. So the alternate text for images needs to be current so that it will read out loud what it is that the person is seeing. So for example, here's a picture of the Microsoft logo. So I'm going to right click on it, and I'm going to select Edit Alt Text. And then I just need to write what it is. This is the Microsoft logo. And that's all I have to do. So now let's recheck it and make sure that that came apart, and it looks like it did. Yes. So as I'm correcting these things, it will disappear every time I do a recheck. So picture 15 on slide 3, that's this picture. Again, I'm going to right mouse click, select Edit Alt Text, and this is a photo of Microsoft CEO with students. And again, that's all I have to do. And then I'm just going to continue through. And if it doesn't really need to have alt text, if it's not something that somebody would be missing, then you don't have to do it. So just a good practice. that we are taking this into consideration with all of the materials that we are using. And again, this is available in Word, in PowerPoint, in Outlook. It's available across all of M365. So it's a good thing to know, something to think about as you are preparing your materials. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you were able to learn more about Microsoft's products. My contact info is on the screen should you have any questions at all. On my website, you can schedule small and large group trainings or even one-to-one consultations. I have also provided a link to access all of my Microsoft webinars on my YouTube playlist. My email is also posted, and I encourage you to follow me on Twitter to stay up to date with all the latest Microsoft news. Thanks again for joining, and I look forward to seeing you again next time. Cheers.